in the end, 3 weeks, 3 weeks have gone by since the last time I was here in Milan. In the end, I was supposed to come, and then I was really busy in the sense, it's a little bit. I had two. I had two programs for the same day, and I hadn't realized that. I was. I thought Spain started on Thursday, and yet it started on Wednesday. I was supposed to be in Malaga at 7 o'clock, and and then the week after, I was. No, I don't even remember if I was here, not here. Anyway, the days that I wanted to come, I wasn't actually able. Sorry. And it's always a joy to be here. I mean, how many years have gone by since we started mm, teachings at the Kunpen together? Maybe Let- at, at least 20 years between one thing or another. And I'd like to say they're they're all beautiful memories because I realize that in our everyday lives we're taken often by problems that we need to resolve, the pleasures to enjoy, things to criticize. I mean, uh, our mind has lots to do, and time just goes by. When and when we look around, yeah, time has gone by, and those moments where we have this opportunity to spend an hour, a couple hours together, independently of the actual subject, these opportunities are more and more rare. And you give me this opportunity to reflect on something, and together we do this together. Sometimes we have this idea that as the years go by and as we mature, we get better. I think that on some aspects we're better, and other aspects maybe we get a little worse. But a few days ago, I don't know exactly when, but I remember some time ago, actually. Sorry, I don't know exactly when, but a few centuries ago, there was there was this lady who had a very big house and she loved art, and often she would open up her house to to philosophical debates between Chri- um, Christians and Jews, and she became very famous. I mean, I asked myself today, where would we go today to find an open, sincere debate? I mean, independently of the religion, because we're more and more taken by superficial things. And having this opportunity to be here together, to take time to reflect, which is not even about thinking about far away things, but deeper reflections that have to do actually with our daily life. I think this is a wonderful opportunity, and I'm particularly grateful and happy to be able to be here. Because many things in our lives were taken by other moments. I don't. This is not what I want to talk about, but I'd like to add this side note. I'm particularly worried. It's connected about what I want to talk about, but not fully. We're made up of body and mind. And in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, it's said that we're made up of five aggregates. There's the form aggregate, the aggregate where the other parts of the body accumulate, and then we have sensation, discernment, compositional factors, and then consciousness, without getting into details. But we are made up of form, our body, and the other four make reference to the mind. More and more, I'm convinced, more and more, I mean, strongly, firmly, that it's an error to make a clear distinction between body and mind. And I see that even in my way of speaking, generally speaking, it's hard not to make that distinction. We say, oh, the mind, the body. No, I can't. Nothing. If something happens to the body, it's impossible for that not to influence the mind, and vice versa. Inevitably, if something happens to the body, inevitably it will have a mental effect, and vice versa. That means that there are two things that are, as we say in Tibetan, novo de la chipatate, which means they're two different things but of the same nature. What, if there's one, then there's the other, and if there's one, then there's the other. If one is not there, the other is not there. They have two separate appearances, but they are the same nature. And this takes us to one factor that we think that it's a problem of the mind when when that specific characteristic is generated from a physical reason. And sometimes we think that the cause of our malaise is physical, but it actually makes reference to something mental. It, we imagine a circle, and what, you know, so the mental influences the physical, and the physical influences the mental. I mean, which came first, the chicken or the egg? We don't know. Um, so it's important when it's something non-virtuous just to stop it. Personally, there's something that I'm worried about, something that worries for all of us, for all and for all of those who are not here, and in my generation and the generations after, and mostly even more for the generations to come, the younger generation. It's the following. When we interact with the world around us, it's not simply mental. There are physical dynamics, chemical, that are really quite simple. And at our basis, how can I say, with all the philosophy that we can learn, the meditation we can do, all the levels of knowledge that we can have, at the end of the day, we're human beings, we're animals. With all with all respect to to the animals, I didn't mean that in a negative way. But, when our hormones are upside down, how do we feel? Just think of someone. I'm thinking of someone that was connected actually to my family. Is a rabbi, and it happened that at a certain point, he was he was very important in Brazil. He was in he was he was caught in New York actually. He he got caught by the police, and they actually sent him. They caught him actually stealing ties. I mean, he had money to buy what he wanted, but anyway, at the end of all this, it came out that he had health problems, and he had self-medicated. He was self-medicating, and that medicine that he was taking brought him to confusional states. and they took the wrong quantities. I don't know. And that brought him to do really silly things. Oh, and one of those things was going into a store, taking something, and walking out with it. Um, I mean, it took a long time to explain, clarify it at all. Anyway, he was already towards the end of his career. But what I mean to say, and that's not what I wanted to talk about tonight, but that this fact that when there's a chemical imbalance, how much does that influence our minds? Our, a lot, just a little. Is there anyone here who is not, who doesn't succumb to this? Who's not influenced by this? Mm-mm. Once I was reading a book. It was very old, and a real old book, maybe the beginning of the 19th century. It was written by a doctor who was describing various drugs in a very scientific way. This drug has this effect, that one brings that effect. I, who had never taken anything, at a certain point, I thought, you know, maybe it was interesting to try because he explained certain drugs that brought. He would say this shows what's inside that person on a non-conceptual level once they um, don't have so much control of themselves. And so I was a little curious. I, I think that my mind is the most precious resource that I have, so I don't want to play around with it at all. But if I take a substance that changes the chemistry of my body, wh- what what effect would it have? It would have a mental effect too. So we're all influenced by this. There are certain processes, chemical, that are fruit of our evolution as a species, and they have a function for our survival. But the conditions that we live today are extremely different. So certain of these functions that arose for survival, in when they arise in the wrong context, it can be absolutely disastrous. Let me try to explain a little bit more. And let me just start by saying I'm not the best person to talk about this. There are those who understand much more than I do. And maybe I'm going to make a mistake, but I think the meaning behind it all is valid. When we obtain something that we want, do we feel pleasure or not? Chemically, what happens? Yes, there's we have an increase of dopamine. When I'm able to get something, do I want to get it again or is that enough for me? What does our experience tell us? I want it again, I want more. And so I need to work hard, do what I can to get more. So if it's pleasurable and I want more of it, that allows me to put in the necessary energy to get that thing. If to get that pleasure, I need to walk miles and miles, and I really want that pleasure, I'm going to walk that distance. Instead, if it's something that's that's that makes me suffer, it's something I want to avoid. I mean, these are normal, absolutely normal mechanisms for our survival. something that's that Something that's good for us, something that we like or gives us pleasure, we naturally want it. I mean, imagine if hunger wasn't unpleasant, or if if eating wasn't pleasurable, would we put effort into eating? Why do we put so much effort into eating? Because we want to avoid being hungry, and eating is pleasurable. And that pleasure allows us to put in all that effort. When we come into contact with a novelty, do we like it or not? For example, why do we like traveling? Why do we like going to new places? Because we like new things. When we always go to the same places, it's different. Maybe maybe we like, there's some aspects that we like, but what happens is every time that we come into contact with a novelty, we 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 receive dopamine. And once that's finished, what do we want? We want we want something new, and we're ready to put effort into that. So there's this mechanism of reward, this mechanism of reward, which is really simple. It's in the sense something is something is pleasurable, and I put effort into getting it. I have my reward. It's the pleasure. What happens if I try to get my reward without putting in any effort? For example, it's a simple example. I love eating pasta, and I can eat it every day. Every time, every time I eat it, it's pleasurable. And someone might tell me, you need to eat, you need to, you need to walk 5 kilometers, and then you can find the pasta. It's going to cost you 10 euros. Why would I do that when I can have it at home all so easy to obtain? And so once it's so easy to obtain, then we no longer have that desire. We're no longer willing to put effort into getting that thing. So as children, during childhood, the first mechanisms that create that inner mechanism of reward that actually creates dopamine is the union of image, movement, and sound. To a very small child, what attracts a child? Something still or something in movement. And then if it makes a little bit of sound or it has lots of colors, what would a child like more? Something white, black and white, or something multicolored? So at our basis, we're attracted to that which creates the stimuli. And and as from childhood, movement, sound, and colors, videos. We we have tools now where we are immediately rewarded. We don't have to put in any effort. We don't even need there's no time even to think about it. We just go from one to the next. The other day it happened that I had never gone on to like social media. I don't really like social media for various reasons. But I have YouTube on the phone. And I thought there was something new on YouTube, which I rarely go on. And I went into one of these videos, and I spent like an hour and a half. And you see the little dog that does this, and some other video who does that, and then maybe something a little bit meaningful, and then something funny. And when you want to stop, you're just not able. It's hard. I don't know about you. It's difficult. I felt that there was a friend who said, my husband, a man who's very successful, he's well learned, he is of a certain age. He's not a teenager. No, he's someone in the society, we would say, who's very well cultured, uh, is soon as soon as he wakes up, he's 3/4 of an hour in the bathroom on TikTok. What's the real problem here? It's this mechanism of reward. We become used to being immediately rewarded because it's pleasurable. We get into a very rudimentary mechanism, but afterwards, it's difficult to put energy into facing difficulties. It's difficult to construct something, to go towards something. And the more immediate rewards we have, the more dissatisfied we become. And not just that, we get into a dynamic where the mind, as soon as it finishes, as soon as it obtains what it wants more. There it's there. Where's my phone? Where's my that first moment where, oh, I don't know what to do, I go for my phone. But are we really interested in the contents of that video or that feeling that we receive? That the actual feeling. When I realized that I was there for an hour and a half, and I have my own problems. If I listen to music, that tune will just stay in my head. I I remember once I was reading an article on the BBC, and it was talking about the Baby Shark song. Some teacher, something like this. I went to listen. Oi, for a week. For a week, that song just stuck in my head. And I need to be really careful with the kind of music that I listen to because it really stays stuck in my head. So, so there's the images, and then um, the tune that just stays stuck in the head. But my point is, maybe we see that and we think it's mental. It's something I like. No, it's chemical. And that's why it affects everyone, independently of the age or culture, level of knowledge. So I think that it's really important for us to be careful about when these short when these short videos when they started these really short videos, someone asked me, Lama, why don't you do very short videos? And I went to see what they were all about, and I said, no, and maybe in another context, but no, because from my point of view, and excuse me if I say it like this, I mean, what's happening is I find it criminal. We talk about many things today. Artificial intelligence, or the jobs that will be lost. I mean, oh, this is part of the natural transformation of society. As there are new things, I don't know, in Tibet, the there are there are no astrologers don't have any work anymore. I mean, their jobs were based on making calculations. So it's obvious put when you think about the technology that has potential to substitute, 300,000 uh, 300,000 jobs, and we need to think a little bit about how this is all going. But seriously, the real problem is we're making changes in our lifestyle that are quite strong, that they have an impact on our mental health and, as a consequence, our physical health. And it touches each one of us. It's no joke. This is something that personally makes me worry. Sorry if I bring this subject. Our our brain, for example, has a characteristic that is the more you use it, the more it works. Just look at memory, for example. Our ability to our ability to memorize today, is it better or worse than the past? Uh, the classic example are telephone numbers. Studying in India, and in I saw for myself that the more, because the traditional way of study in Tibet, memorizing was fundamental, and the more you memorize, the easier it becomes. I mean, the more you use your mind in one way, the the easier it becomes to do that. Our brain develops in that way, and the parts that aren't developed, they atrophy. Little by little, they just stop working. The question is, what is necessary for our well-being, for our health? We should look at three levels when we come into contact with information. The first level is knowledge and acquiring knowledge. It's called tupa, listening. When we come into contact with Buddhism or anything else, that first contact is receiving information. And this can come through a text, a video, an audio, or someone who's talking to me. I'm acquiring information. I'm at the very beginning. Once I've acquired information, I need to go to the second level, which is understanding. Understanding means analyzing, knowing, seeing it in a million different ways, 1,000 different ways, until that information is no longer something that someone told me, but becomes my own, my own certainty, because I've understood it. Doesn't matter what someone has told me. It's not something I repeat from a book. It's my own certainty. And this requires a process of analysis, debate, reflection. It's not immediate. I've seen, for example, the subjects that I've studied in Tibetan Buddhism, that I've debated on, um, um, going those that I those that I were able to take from the listening to the understanding, I've never forgotten them because I've really understood them. The subjects that I studied, but I didn't have the opportunity to debate on them. Some things I remember them because I had my own inner process of understanding, but many, many others I've forgotten. It's not enough to understand. It's not enough to acquire information. We need to digest that information. We need to make that information part of ourselves. This is a, that process is a lot larger than that first one. And we're still just at the beginning with these two first steps. The real job is after I've listened, after I've acquired information, after I have understood and digested that information, I need to familiarize myself with the concept until it becomes something spontaneous. Um, it's part of my own being. And that's the most important part. We have today, we live in a reality where information is easier and easier to access in ways like they've never happened before. But this creates a problem if we're not careful. I mean, it's marvelous on one side. It's dangerous on the other. Give me an example of my own that I also shared in Abanyana the other day. When I was studying in India, I think we should always study. But But when I was studying Buddhist philosophy, there's a part of our studies in during debates we need to cite text. So we start talking about a text or a subject, let's say bodhicitta, and at a certain point one opens the debate. What's the definition? And one gives the definition, and we talk about the definition, and then one looks for an example, and the example of that but doesn't match that definition, and we open this debate. If at a certain point you say something and I want to contradict you, I can use logic, or I can cite a text that says what I want to say, and a text that's respected by by also the one that we're debating with. Their 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 texts that are accepted by all, and then texts that are accepted by the Gelupa tradition, etc. So one job in debate was taking a subject, imagine the doubts related to that subject, and then we would open. Then one would, while we studied, you'd open up about 5 or 6 books from different authors talking about this same subject, and you would memorize the quotations, the passages or the quotes by these authors. So you needed to know how to look for what you needed. And a few years later, I was the first in India to have many philosophy books in Tibetan in digital in on the computer, and so I would have all these word files, and I would do find looking for keywords, and I would take what I needed and I copy and paste, and I would make my separate file with all the quotations, the citations that I needed. But then I realized that that I was learning less, because that process of looking for them, reading that citation in context, gave me a level gave me a level of understanding that went far beyond that mere quotation. Having access to information is important, but digesting it and understanding it is even more important, because when we're in front of a situation where we need to judge or choose, where we need to act with awareness, where we need to use our discernment and say, this is this, that is that, what's our reference? Our knowledge, our acquired information, or what we have elaborated inside. Also, because when we need to choose something and act and judge our discernment, it's not something that says, oh, just a minute, let me go do some research. Just a minute, let me ask for artificial intelligence. They're things that are very fast. And when we don't have an inner reference point, what do? We use external reference points, and we take that for granted. So the more we have our own experience, then our ability to discern is better. Our our ability to act is better. And this is gradually, I see this is gradually lacking more and more, and we need to be careful about this. The real objective is not understanding, but is becoming, is being. What's more important for us? Being in harmony, being in balance, feeling love, gratitude, joy, have patience, live in harmony with ourselves and with others. This is what's important. And to do this, there's a process of knowledge, experience, and working in this direction, putting energy in that direction to realize it. And if, generally speaking, if we're already distracted in our um, in in the daily life with the drugs that are available to everyone that are not called drugs, um, then that energy that we need to actually realize something um, is lacking more and more. I don't mean to be tragic about it all, but we're in front of something that's dangerous. And I just take advantage. I touch on this subject, and then we'll go somewhere else. For example, it's said that the human brain, mind, some say there's no difference, some say there's no big difference between between what one experiences and what imagines. And this is this power that is generated through visualization. When we visualize something, we're generating that experience. And our memory afterwards, there's the memory of what happened, even if it was only in visualization. What happens if I have a life with problems, and I think we all do. And at a certain point, I can live a parallel life where I can choose to not have certain troubles. I can choose to live in an idealized world. And the more we enter into that world, the more we live it as real, and we move away from our own realities. And for this reason, personally, personally, all everything about the metaverse that really worries me. Not about the economic aspects. I'm talking about mental health. We are weak beings, fragile. The, our mental and physical health is extremely fragile, and we've seen that things that apparently aren't harmful, and and initially we thought that it wasn't at all so it wasn't harmful, and then we saw that it was absolutely devastatingly harmful. I mean, these are things that have a chemical effect over our mind and over our bodies. I love technology. I'm favorable to technology, and all and it depends on how we use technology. The difference is when we, it's like saying, like cocaine, for example. In certain situations, can it be useful? I've never taken cocaine, I don't know. But, but for example, someone who needs to be careful, life or death. No one, someone needs to be awake and have very and very heightened senses, and but is falling asleep. I would say that would be useful for that person at that point. It could happen, unfortunately, some cases of person who who's in a is in a, is working in the hospital and needs to work 48 hours and can't stay on his feet. If staying awake and being have heightened senses can save someone's life, then maybe that would be useful to that in that situation. But what's the great danger? I take cocaine to resolve a problem. But even if I've resolved that problem, even if my intention is good, that substance, how does my body my body interacting with that substance chemically, um, it creates addiction. I think so. The only person Lama Gangchen actually said that he took cocaine and that it made no if it had no effect on him whatsoever. It's the first time I'd ever heard something like that. S- The first time, the first time he came to Italy, and someone he stayed at someone's house in Milan who was using cocaine, and Lama Gangchen used snuff because when he came from Tibet, he had a very bad sinus problems, and that snuff actually really cleans the sinus passages. It's very used in India and in Tibet. And he was there in Milan, and he was in the car. He had a really bad headache, and then and the person who was hosting him said, "Oh, take this," and he tried it, and asked him, "Oh, you know, how how are you?" "Well, my headache is gone." Uh, and that's it? Something else? Or, no, nothing. And then never happened again like that. Imagine. Okay. I'm sure now someone's going to, cut this video. Lama Gangchen using cocaine, totally out of context. Anyway, what I mean to say is, from my point of view, maybe I'm wrong, and I want to be wrong. Many of the tools that we have have characteristics they're very similar to drugs because they activate certain chemical processes that create addiction. Maybe some people say, "Oh, I'm strong, I use it well," but that addiction it can it is created, and this worries me a lot. Now uh, now let's close this subject. Otherwise, it seems like everything's going badly. Let's go to the opposite. Somehow it's connected. Let's go to the other side here. Every once in a while, it seems to me that it's that it's out of fashion to believe in utopias. That being a for believing in utopias is like saying that 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 you're putting in energy into something that's not going to happen, that you're a silly person, that you're a dreamer. Even even the even the term dreamer can be pejorative. And when I talk about certain dreams, often questions one of the questions that are asked to me is, do you really think that this could happen? And with all sincerity, I don't know. But there is something I'm sure about. Going in that direction, I mean, even if we only get 10% in that direction, that's already a lot. For example, mental and physical health. I mean, living in a very well balanced, healthy state. That's a utopia, isn't it? Because our body interacts with our surroundings, with our emotions, with other people, the situations around us. What's the nature of our body as we age? It degenerates. If we use a part of our body wrongly, it abandons us. It's normal. So if having an ideal health is a utopia, then people say, well, why should you work so hard to be healthy if it's impossible to reach that balanced state? Because it's believing in optimal health that we go in that positive direction. On the other hand, which is keep creating harm for ourselves, and believing in inner health that takes us in that direction. And one of the most important things in our society is believing in utopias, having dreams as societies and as individuals. What one of the things I learned with Lama Gangchen Rinpoche is that believing in the impossible makes it possible. And I've seen many times in my life that believing in the impossible at a certain point that really did become possible. And then there were still some other things that were impossible, and little by little we go and make those possible. It's fundamental for us to have an idealized image of where we want to go and what we want to do without having to judging or criticizing when things don't correspond fully to that image. Say, oh, I want to reach this perfect state of health, oh, but I'm not able, um, so it's useless that I put any effort in it at all. No, because it's a, really about it's walking in a direction. It's fundamental. So let's go back to one of the most important questions that we can ask ourselves. And I'm convinced that the questions are more important than the answers. And the question is, what do I want? Really? As in my life, what gives meaning to my life? What do I really want? And the answer is not immediate. I realized. At first I thought it was easier. Then I realized it wasn't. Also because often when we look for the answer, the first answers are conditioned by other people's answers. Along our education, we were told what we were supposed to become. And we just look at the fairy tales. They lived happily ever after. I'm, fables, the story tells, they teach something to children. What's the imprint that they leave? Where we're directing our happiness. What we want. And I saw that often we have, like, when we talk about the United States, the American dream. I mean, it's really quite explicit, isn't it? One tries to follow a kind of shared dream that was handed down. But we have many objectives that don't come from our own experiences, our own reflections or choices. They come from so do I want to live in a perfect world, or do I want to be in harmony with the world that I'm in? I mean, think I mean, just thinking that people are supposed to act the way we want them to act, or that we should live the experiences that we want to live. That's a utopia. Instead of, so let's say I want to be in harmony. Forget the others. I mean, that doesn't depend on me. I mean, I want to be in harmony. Is that a utopia? Yes, but it's much more real. I think that it's feasible. What do I want to be? It's important also to direct our energy accordingly. Once I was here in Italy and I was talking to someone. I'm quite curious by nature. I like seeing and understanding. That's why I think social media is a trap. I see every video until the end. I'm curious and I need to protect myself. And once this person came to me and said, Lama, and he starts telling me something, some kind of gossip, and 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 halfway through says, "Oh, it's better if I don't say anything." And normally, what would our reaction be? Oh, now you have to tell me. Are you just gonna leave me hanging? And then you started. Now you need to finish. But then I understood something. You don't want to tell me? Better for me. Much better for me. Because it means that I don't need to fill up my mind with something useless. I don't need it. And, and, and then you say, okay, don't tell me. Then that person really wants to tell you worse. No, I don't need to fill up my mind with information that doesn't go anywhere. I saw this concept that works on a practical level. I mean, there are two types of information that we can acquire. Information that when we receive them, that it helps us to understand something else. It expands our consciousness and our understanding. It increases our horizons. And there are other types of information that just end in themselves. And instead of opening up our horizon, they close us up. Gossip, for example, or to know knowing what color underwear someone is wearing, does that expand? Does that increase in my horizon? Or does it just end there? It just fills up my mind. It doesn't increase our view. These are things that fill up our mind and block us. So the less the less we the less we fill up our mind with these kinds of things, the better. The other day, looking at the news, the the sub the headlines, it says, the new king is not going to invite a such and such, or is inviting to uh, you know, who cares? What do I need? Why do I need to know that? Instead, very often we just fill ourselves up with so much information. We want to know what would he have said and how did he say it and why? Oh, because he's jealous of the wife and then the children. But what's the point? At least, I mean, thinking for myself, my life is too precious to waste it on these things. Because where do we use up our life? With thoughts, with actions, with interactions. That's where life is happening. And sincerely speaking, I don't want to use up my life with things that don't bring benefit, especially mid and long term. So going back, it's wonderful to have a utopic view. healthy one. We need to clarify that, have clarity about it, because that is what will determine how we face our daily life and how we use our energy, what we do, what we don't do. And, and so it's important to ask ourselves, what do we want? What do I want? Where do I want to go? There are two vows in the Lojong teachings that I really like. Lojong is a teaching about mind training, and there are some various vows, and there are two that I really like. One says, and the one in Tibetan, the other one in Tibetan, no, I can't remember. Anyway, the meaning, one says, don't speak about the missing qualities of others. In other words, don't criticize. And the second, it says, just giving you a very down-to-earth translation, would be mind your own business. Which actually literally is, don't think about what has to do with others. So it says, mind your own business. Because often we end up filling up our space. And what's even worse, I don't know if it's worse, but it worsens the situation, let's say, in our worrying or concerning ourselves with other people's lives, we impose our view of how we think the other should be. And lots of our space is taken up with, this person did this, should have done that, etc., etc. And we use up a lot of space, and then we're upset when someone did something that they shouldn't have done. I mean, even if it's something that has nothing to do with us. And which is, we really fill up a big part of our lives. And the point is that we're going to die, and this is no joke. And personally, I want to age well, and I want to die well. I want to be one of these old, patient, joyous, loving old people. Instead, I don't want to be an old grumpy man. I don't want to be an old grumpy man. Because if someone cultivates nervousness and anger at the end of one's life, I mean, one is what one has familiarized himself with. I don't want to go in that direction. I want to be, I want to have a long life, a health life, but I like to be a happy old person. I'll give advice to those who ask, and I won't give advice to those who don't ask. I want to know how to say the right thing at the right time. I don't want to lose my cognitive abilities as I age. My grandfather's 99, and his head is very clear. I was there with him. I was there with him some time ago, and he was. There were other people around him. It looked like he wasn't following, and then he just opened up his mouth at the right time, and he really follows everything. He's not lucky. I mean, it was his job. I remember when he was past 80 something, and he was there with his iPhone, and he was playing games with his phone. I said, "What are you doing? You like the game?" He said, "No, I don't particularly like the game, but when one gets older, the part of the brain that works on short-term memory degenerates. So I need to always learn new things to keep my mind trained. And he did that a lot. I mean, it worked. So if I want to go ahead and have the ability um, to understand and judgment, perception, um, and to be present in the present, I need to keep my mind trained. I need to learn new things. I need to use my head enough. I don't know why, but I mean, it's tiring to think. It, it consumes energy. It takes up energy, even on a physical level. Thinking a lot takes up energy. Sometimes I have this feeling that once one has finished the studies, because now they finished their studies, they found the job, that they don't need to study anymore. No, we should always, we should never stop studying. Um, we should keep we should keep learning to keep our mind trained in learning, being able to learn, even regardless of the content. This is also important. So, what kind of old person do I want to be? Ask yourself. If you say, "Oh, I don't want to get old." Well, what's the alternative then? Is to die young. No. How do we want to age? Or better yet, how are we aging? I don't know how many of us here are younger than 25. One, two. Okay. You haven't started aging yet. Everyone else has already started. I don't know how many more years you have to go before you start aging, but on a neurological level, one starts aging at 25. That at 21 we finish that growth, the phase of growth, and then from 21 to 25, there's no degeneration, no aging. But after 25, we start to age, even on a neurological level. So how are we aging? What habits are we reinforcing? Life goes by so quickly, and an important aspect, I mean, hap come what may, what happens around me, what others do, how other people's behave, is not a problem. It's not my problem. Not because I don't care. Not at all like that. It's not a problem for me because I don't have the solution. In a relationship between two people, what someone does towards me, I mean, can we change that person? How many of us have tried? Is there anyone here who has never tried to change someone? I've tried many times. No, was never able. Is there anyone here who has ever been able to change someone? Not me, no one. And we keep trying, and I'm sure that many of us have put a tremendous amount of energy into trying to change, change someone. I mean, even parents try to change their children. This reminds me of a story of this boy who, at a certain point in his life, he 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 generates this intention, desire. He wanted to change the world. The rabbi I told you about before, he told me this story, and he's enthusiastic. He wants to change the world, and does he does everything he can to change the world. The world's not going well, and years go by, and then he got to the conclusion that the planet is too big for one person to change it. Also, that well, I can do my own country, and so he works hard and he gets married and his children and the years go by and then he gets to the conclusion a country is too big for one person alone. Oh, I'll change my city. That's easier. Years go by. Same thing. No, a city is too big for one person to be able to change it. Then he changes his idea. At least my neighborhood. I was born here. I was raised here. I know everyone. After years, no, even a neighborhood is too big for one person to change. And he was about to give up. And he said, well, what about my family? At least my family. I've raised my children. They respect me. But at the end, years go by, he's quite old, and he says, no, even the family is too big for one person to change. I have only myself to change. He starts to change his way of being, he starts becoming what he wants others to be, and he starts influencing his children, the other people he lives with, and then his apartment building, and then his neighborhood, and his city, and his country, and the world. So the point is, we can't change someone else. It's clear that our interaction with others bring change in others. What's not possible is having an idealized image of what someone should become and try to channel that and make that person be what we think they should be. But in our interactions, we influence each other. So we can change someone in that sense that we influence them. But this aside, when someone has behavior that we don't like towards us, that we don't think is correct, I mean, other than interacting and you know, can we do, is there something that we can do? No. So the way someone behaves towards me is not my problem, not because I don't care and not because I don't mind, but I don't have the solution, but how I live and how I interact, how I live inside, outside, mentally, verbally, physically, with in relation to the action of the other, that's my problem because I can do something about that. And this changes so much. I don't know. Today's Wednesday. Since Monday, how many times did you point your finger towards something or someone, saying it was the fault was there? I mean, you don't need to actually answer, but it happens because this is like this or that's like that. This person is like this. Often about things that we can talk about and see if we actually agree with what happened, agree with that kind of behavior. We can also agree that that behavior would be better if it were different. We can spend hours talking about it, but at the end of the day, it's not something that we can change. And it's for this reason that often when there's conflict between two people, with two people, there's a conflict between two people, they come to talk to me and then they get upset with me because when someone is in conflict with someone else and they go to talk to someone else, what do they want? They want the other person to say, yes, you're right, you're a victim, that person shouldn't be doing this. Instead, what I try to do, if you come to me about a problem that you've had with someone else, I'm not going to talk about the other person. Let's talk about what you can do to try to resolve your side of the story and live better. And when the other person comes to me, I'll talk to them about what they can do. But often when there's a conflict, Um, People want to hear when there's conflict. They want to hear that their adversary, let's say the other person, is um, is wrong. So I tell you openly, this is how I do. So maybe you've been forewarned how it would go. But seriously, let's take things in our own hands. I mean, how do we want to face life? Because life goes by so quickly. The days go by quickly. Life gradually it's used up. And as it's lived, we shape it, we transform it with every action, with every interaction. The other day I heard something that was really similar to Buddhist view. It talked about epigenetics and said that our genetic part has two types, two environments that transform genetics. Our DNA is in a certain way, and according to our surroundings, it transforms. And the environment can be external or it can be internal. The external environment is um, everything that is connected, that everything that we can relate to through our five senses, and the inner environment would be more connected to our emotions. But that which has a greater power of transformation is the inner environment. Also external, but much more the inner environment. In Buddhism, it says that when someone dies, um, what what one brings from one life to the next are the imprints. Imprints are created, they're reinforced through our thoughts and feelings and actions and interactions. So, what happens is every interaction that we have, every thought that we have, every emotion, we're shaping our being. And independently of what happens around me, I don't want to familiarize myself in a negative direction. Someone might say, well, how is it possible that you don't get upset with this person? Are you indifferent? No, because my inner state of being, my inner health is much more important. Because if 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 I were to if I were supposed to get upset about everything that's not going in what I consider to be the right way, I should I should be upset 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I I can give you a long list of things that are difficult, but I don't want to cultivate that mind. And it's being well that I can influence others positively. And so, really, what's the direction that we give to our actions, to our being, more than anything else? And we need to be very careful. We need to be careful about the distractions, and that was the initial subject for those who want to meditate. It said, even ancient teachings say the first step for those who want to meditate is about taking away distractions. And we have many, many distractions. We want to direct our mind. We want to have a certain balance. We need to diminish our distractions. Allow ourselves to put effort into getting to where we really want to get, to not be afraid of difficulties, to find our strength in our resources. When we talk about not being afraid, for example, or to not have uncertainties, for example, I've found certainty and a certain calm, a certain peace in the certainty of the uncertainty. Let me explain myself better. If I try, if I try to find certainty in things being the way I want them to be, reality is that reality is that it's what looked certain is no longer that way. So I'm certain that things are uncertain. And so I don't relate to these things based on an idealized image of how things should be. Instead, I put my attention into my resources to face anything, come what may. And this makes an enormous change. I don't I don't base my security, my feeling of courage, of feeling safe, sure, based on an idea that I think that everything should go the way I think it should go. No, instead, it's based on the tools that I have, the resources that I have to face anything. And that's where I should put my energy, my ability to face whatever comes. If I need to take a long trip, for example, I can't be sure that everything will go fine. There'll be things that'll be different than what I've programmed. But if I'm sure that I have the means to face difficulties as they arise, then I'm ready to travel. And if the car breaks down, we'll fix it. If something else happens here, we'll find the solution. It's important to have this faith. And the faith is not based on an idealized image of how things are expected to be externally, but is a faith that is based on our own resources. And that's what we need to cultivate. That's what we need to develop. A bit, if I say, okay, I'll leave now, if I'm ready to leave for a trip, and if I want to sail, for example, I trust that I have the means to face anything. If I trust also my boat, I know how to read the currents and the winds. And how can we develop these certainties? One way is through experiencing difficulty. Because when we live difficult experiences and we're able to overcome them, what's the message that we receive? The message we give ourselves is, I can do it. And the next time I find myself with a similar difficulty, I tell myself, oh, well, I managed before. And if we overcome a large difficulty, then when the smaller ones come, it's nothing. Even going back again to my grandparents on my father's side, who escaped the Second World War as Jews. My grandfather had to reinvent himself at least twice. He had serious difficulties that he really was able to overcome. So small things that come, he's never overwhelmed. So it's important. We shouldn't be afraid of difficulties. We shouldn't be afraid of problems. We should be afraid of not facing problems. We should be afraid of running away from problems. When we're able to overcome difficulties, that gives us so much strength, that reinforces, even if I face that difficulty at a certain point, I'm not able to resolve everything the way I wanted, but the fact that I faced it, that already teaches me so much patience. Um, I learned, where, learn what went well, what I can do differently in the future. I don't think we should be afraid of difficulties. Instead, we should be afraid of n- we should be afraid of trying to maintain our comfort zone, which is even more dangerous, I think, than movement. When we're comfortable in our comfort zone, we're blocked in that reality. If our comfort zone is a state of Buddhahood, fine, but I don't think that's the case for most of us. Or maybe you're all Buddhas and you're here just to help me along my path. Why not? But don't be afraid of difficulties. That's where we grow, where we learn. Don't be afraid of getting out of your own comfort zone, because when we need to put a little bit of effort, we train ourselves in putting an effort or investing our energy in what we want, which is absolutely fundamental. To conclude, we should have utopias, dreams. I'm going to say something that somehow might seem contradictory, but let me try to explain. Ha- have have a utopia, but don't idealize that utopia. So have a high objective and a low expectation. I direct myself towards that, but I I accept what comes, even when faced with someone else. I relate with you in the best, seeing the best in you, and be there'll be behavior that I don't understand, that I don't like, sure, but it's my choice. It's my choice where I want to generalize. And we have this tendency to generalize. That's why, for example, if we if we if we have a meal, dessert is really important, because that last thing that we've had is what's going to generalize the whole meal. We need to be careful about generalizing, for better or worse. We say in Portuguese, we say, one thing is one thing, another thing is another thing. So one thing doesn't take away something else. So I have clarity. This I don't like. I'm not going to follow it, but this other thing is marvelous, and I really enjoy it. It's like once someone went to Rinpoche and said, "I'd like to go to this place and follow this master from that tradition," and Rinpoche he'd say, "Go." If he thought it wasn't good for that person, he would say, maybe better not. When Rinpoche would say, maybe better not, it was a way of saying absolutely not. Better be careful of that situation. But normally he would say, go, and what if you find beneficial, take, and what is not beneficial, leave. It's as simple as that. For example, I've been in situations um, um, I've been in situations where I was able to take what was of benefit, and I would leave, and I was able to leave what I didn't find beneficial. And if I wasn't sure, I would just put it on a waiting list. Oh, uh, I understood. Need to understand more. I need to deepen my understanding of this to see if that's something that is really beneficial for me. So I put it on a waiting list. I mean, certain things I understand, other things I don't. And so the things that I see and from my point of view are not good, I take away. The good things I follow, and the things I don't understand, they're on a waiting list. And little by little, as we go ahead, oh, as, as we go ahead, we see my waiting list is very, very long. I mean, there's so many things that I need to deepen. Little by little, we put the pieces together. So, a high objective, low expectation, and constant effort. That's it's one of the best precepts. High objective has to do with ourselves. Who do I want to be? Low expectation, wanting something is one thing, and getting it is another. So if I have a high expectation and if I have a high goal and a high expectation, that's the best way to do nothing. Let me explain myself better. I would love to have a very, very high level of patience. So I put this super high objective of having perfect patience, and then I see that I'm not able. I get angry. I'm not able. So I'm not going to so I stop putting effort into being something that I'm not able to be. That's the fourth type of laziness. There are four types of laziness. So the first is just pure laziness, or one says, no, I just don't feel like it. Oh, it would be good to practice patience. I don't feel like it. And then there's the laziness of procrastinating. Yes, practicing patience is important. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it later. And then there's the laziness of doing something useless instead of doing something useful. I should practice patience, but now I need to to be generous. It's not necessarily useless, but you don't need to do it in that exact moment. Or maybe you already are spontaneously generous. Um, what's the definition of laziness? My own invention. It's the union of two factors. The certainty of the importance of something united with the the lack of desire for that same thing. That's laziness. I know that I should, but I don't want. And then we look for excuses. At least that first one of just pure laziness is sincere, and as they go on, they're worse. They're more subtle. I'll do it tomorrow. There's somewhere in there it is. I don't feel like it, but I can't. I'm already a victim. I need to do something else. I would like to do it, but it's just not possible. I should meditate, but today, there's the soccer game, or there's the last episode. So I do something that's not necessary to do something that is more important. And the fourth, which is the worst, is I'd like to, but I'm not able, which often is a kind of self-sabotage. I know that I should do this. It would be good to do this, but I'll never be able to do this. I'm not able to do that. That's too difficult. So we we set an objective that is so high with an expectation that is even higher, um, knowing that we're not going to be able to do it, so I don't even need to try. So I'm going to walk from here to Albagnano on foot. Oh, I'd never be able to do it. Oh, it's too difficult. It's too far. So I never have to leave the house. But every step I get closer. I get closer and closer. So having a high expectation with a high objective with a low expectation is what assures our constant effort. I repeat, the key for me is having clarity about who we want to be and and putting effort into not victimizing ourselves. These are essential points. Now, there's some other things I wanted to say, but next time. Before before concluding for today, let's do a brief meditation. Actually, I mean, what we need more than anything else is meditating. And what we do together is it's called an analytical meditation because most of the things that are said here, either we've already heard them, maybe, maybe sometimes people say, aren't it sometimes it could happen that um, someone could think of another, oh, you've been listening for so long, is always saying the same things. Aren't you bored of hearing the same thing over and over again? Uh, I mean, maybe you hear a recording from 14 years prior and it is still saying the same things. No, but this is an analytical meditation that we're doing together. And most of the things that are said, they're things that you already know. We're not here to learn new things, but to go over things maybe that we haven't reflected on. So we're helping now to digest information, or that's our objective is to take all of this, take these reflections and have them become part of your being. You know. So this process of repeating together is important. So now let's do a brief meditation together. We'll do a meditation called the practice of Guru Yoga. There's a part that where we'll put more emphasis on. In essence, it's allowing ourselves to dream. To dream about who we want to be. And we allow ourselves to experience that dream. So we sit down in a comfortable position with our back straight but not tense. Our shoulders are relaxed. Our head is slightly forward. Our eyes are slightly closed, looking downwards. We're aware of our breath. When we inhale, we gather up all the tensions that have been accumulated in the body and in our mind. And when we exhale, we melt these tensions. We visualize our body like a body of light with a strong central channel, two side channels, and in the space in front of us, Guru Buddha arises. Guru Buddha, in the aspect of Buddha Shakyamuni, or our own root guru, is the embodiment of love, of wisdom, the state of peace and joy. Guru Buddha smiles at us. We recognize in Guru Buddha the qualities of wisdom, harmony, satisfaction, peace, love, compassion, stability, patience, humbleness, generosity, certainty, determination, self-esteem, joy. We ask Guru Buddha to bless us so that we can develop those same qualities. Guru Buddha smiles at us, and from his 5 chakras, light rays and nectar emanate, white from the crown, red from the throat, blue from his heart, yellow from his navel, and green from the secret chakra. These light rays and nectars absorb into our chakras, and as our body fills up with light and nectar, gradually we develop more and more our qualities, as if we allowed ourselves to vibrate with this same frequency. We develop love and generosity, certainty, and etc. Just like light eliminates darkness, as we develop these qualities, our mental defilements vanish.
Palden Lama Shabla Solvade Oma Guru Vajradara Sumati Muni Shasane Karma Udavardanye Shri Badra Varsamanya Sarva Siddhi Hum Oma Guru Vajradara Sumati Muni Shasane karma Utavardanye Shri Badra Varsamanya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Muni Shasane Karma Utavardanye Shri Badra Varsamanya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Om Guru Buddha Siddhi 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 Hum. Il nostro corpo è ripieno di nettare,
Our
luce,
body is full of light and nectar.
gradualmente
Gradually,
sperimentiamo
we
uno stato di pace,
experience a state of peace,
sviluppando le nostre proprie qualità.
developing our own qualities.
Guru Buddha viene
Guru
verso di
Buddha
noi,
comes towards us,
diventa piccolo come un
becomes
pollice,
as small as our thumb,
si siede al nostro capo,
sits on
guardando
our
nella nostra
crown,
stessa
looking in our
direzione.
same direction.
Al chakra del capo,
At our
il canale
crown
centrale si
chakra,
apre.
our
Guru
central
Buddha
channel
dolcemente,
opens, and Guru Buddha
gioiosamente discende,
joyously and
sedendosi su un fior di lotto di 8 petali al
comes
nostro
descends, sitting at a
nel
lotus
momento in cui
flower
Guru
at
Buddha
our
si
heart.
siede al nostro
And
cuore,
as he sits at our heart,
il nostro corpo e
our
mente molto sottile
our
diventano
mind and
inseparabili da
body,
quelli di Guru Buddha.
our subtle mind and body become inseparable
Ci
from his.
permettiamo
We allow ourselves
di sperimentare la
to
mente di Guru Buddha.
experience the mind of Guru
Riposiamo
Buddha.
la nostra mente
We
nella sua,
rest our
il corpo
mind,
nel suo, il
we
nostro
rest
essere
our
nel suo.
body on his or hers, our
Sperimentiamo una
being
sensazione
on
profonda di
hers,
pace,
his or hers. We experience
di
a
amore,
deep state of love
di
and
armonia.
peace, harmony.
Inspira
We inhale and exhale.
permettiamo alla nostra mente,
We
al nostro
allow
corpo, al
our
nostro essere
mind and body, our
di
being,
riposarsi nel suo.
to rest in his.
Riconosciamo
We
in noi stessi
recognize in ourselves
uno stato profondo di
a
pace,
deep state of
un
peace,
infinito spazio interiore,
an infinite inner
in perfetta
space,
armonia con
in
ogni cosa e
perfect
con ogni essere.
harmony with everything
Ci
and
riposiamo
everyone.
in questo
We
stato.
rest in this state. Guru Buddha
Aprile
stays at our heart, inseparable from
accompagna
us, and he
i
accompanies
pensieri
us
nelle nostre parole e
in
nelle
our
nostre azioni.
in our thoughts, in our words, in our actions.
Chetsun lame kutse rabden chin namkra chinle chochur ge padam losan tempe drume sasumgi drove munsela tato ne gyuru che kewa kundu yanda lamadam dralme cheki pela longche chin sadan lamge yunten dorje change kopa nyurtob sho nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan dele kshin ninsen takto dele kpe koncho sumke chinge lob koncho sumke ngodru so koncho sumke trashishu all'alba o al
At
tramonto,
dawn or at
di
dusk, at
notte,
night or
durante,
midday, may
possano
the
i tre
three
gioielli
jewels grant us
concederci le
their
loro
blessings.
benedizioni,
May they
possano
help us
aiutarci ad
to achieve
ottenere
all
tutte le
realizations
realizzazioni e
and
cospargere
sprinkle
il
the
sentiero
path of
della
our
nostra vita
lives
con
with
molti
various
segni di
signs
buon
of
auspicio.
auspiciousness.
Grazie a tutti,
Tashidele, Tashidele. Thank you, everyone.
ci vediamo mercoledì
And
prossimo e questo pacco vi mangia,
we'll see you
quindi
next
non
Wednesday.
andrà.
If everything goes
Teoricamente ci sono,
the
effettivamente
way I think it'll
non ci
go,
sono.
so it won't go that way, but theoretically, I'll be here next Wednesday.